By the time the bonfire had burned down to orange coals, I was the one left holding a stack of paper plates and a trash bag, because that was apparently what I did at Nadia Calloway's family lake house every 4th of July. Her uncle handed me a beer without asking. Her grandmother told me for the second time that night that I had good hands for a man who worked indoors. And somewhere near the dock, Nadia was laughing at something her cousin said, loud enough that I could hear it from across the yard. I had been coming to this lake house for 6 years. Long enough that I knew which screen door stuck in the heat, which chair had a wobbly leg, and exactly where Nadia's dad kept the good flashlights when the power flickered during a storm. At some point I had stopped being Nadia's friend from the city and started being just part of the furniture. Someone handed me things. Someone asked if I could lift that. Someone's kid called me by my first name without being told it. That someone was me. My name is Joel, and I had spent 6 years pretending I was fine with being the most trusted person in Nadia Calloway's life while being the only one who could not say why it mattered so much. Her brother Zach came up beside me near the cooler. He was 2 years younger than her, which made him 26, and he had the kind of confidence that only came from being the most charming person in every room he had ever walked into. You know, you don't actually have to clean up, he said. I know. And yet, I agreed. He popped the top off a bottle and watched me for a second. Zach had this habit of looking at people like he was doing a crossword in his head, and they were the last clue. I had noticed it at the 3rd or 4th lake house trip. By the 5th, I had started avoiding eye contact when I did not want to be read. She turned down the Portland thing, he said. I stopped moving. What? The job. The one she was interviewing for. She said no. I set the trash bag down. Nadia had been interviewing with a design firm in Portland for almost 2 months. It was a senior role. The kind of thing she had been building toward since her first job out of college. She had not told me she said no. She had not told me anything about it in 3 weeks, which I had assumed meant the timing was bad and she was processing. When did that happen? I asked. Zach shrugged in a way that meant he knew more than he would. Week ago, maybe. She just said it wasn't the right time. Wasn't the right time for what? He looked at me the way you look at someone who has just asked what color the sky is. Come on, man. What? He tilted his head toward the dock, where Nadia was now walking back up the path in flip-flops, holding 2 empty cups and her phone tucked under her arm. Her hair was still damp at the edges from when she had waded in earlier. She was laughing at something on the screen. I'm just saying, Zach said, quieter now. It wasn't about the job. He walked away before I could ask anything else. I stood next to the cooler with the trash bag in my hand, while the coals in the fire pit hissed and settled, and the sky over the lake went from dark blue to actual black. A few of her cousins were starting a card game near the porch. Her parents had gone inside around 9. The night was winding down in that slow lake house way where no one wanted to be the first to leave because the air still smelled like summer. Nadia came up beside me and dropped the cups into the trash bag I was holding. You don't have to do that, she said. Your uncle said the same thing. My uncle also ate an entire bag of chips standing sink over the sink at 2 in the morning, so I'd take his advice lightly. I laughed. That was the thing about Nadia. She had this ability to make whatever room she was in feel smaller in the best way. Not cramped, just close. Like the radius of the world got tighter and more manageable whenever she was nearby. She grabbed a can from the cooler and leaned against the table beside me. Her shoulder was close to mine. She smelled like sunscreen and lake water, and whatever that specific brand of summer evening is when the day has mostly gone and the air goes soft. Good party, I said. Same as every year. That's not a bad thing. She looked at me sideways. No, she said, it really isn't. We stayed like that for a minute, not talking, watching her cousin deal cards to the wrong people and argue about the rules. Somewhere down the road, fireworks were still going off in small, scattered bursts. Someone's dog was barking at them from a porch. Then her phone buzzed, and she looked at it, and her face shifted just slightly, the way it did when something required more energy than she had left. Work? I asked. Client in a different time zone with a deadline crisis that is definitely not actually a crisis. 4th of July. Graphic design waits for no holiday. She pushed off the table and pointed at me. Don't finish that bag of pretzels. That's mine for tomorrow. I wasn't going to. You were looking at them. I look at a lot of things. She gave me a look that I could not fully interpret, then walked toward the porch and sat down on the steps to take the call, angling her back slightly so the noise from the card game wouldn't come through. Zach reappeared at my elbow. I had not heard him walk up. You seriously don't see it, he said. It was not a question. Stop it, Joel. Come on. She turned down a good job for her own reasons. Right, her reasons. He said the word like it had a different meaning than the one I was using. You've been coming here for 6 years. You showed up when her dog had surgery. You drove 4 hours in a snowstorm when her apartment flooded. And last Thanksgiving you sat at our table, and my mom cried a little when you offered to do the dishes. Your mom cries at a lot of things. That's fair. But she doesn't cry at the neighbors. I did not say anything. Zach leaned against the cooler and looked at me the same way he had before. Solving something. Every guy she's dated in the last 3 years, he said carefully. She's mentioned you. Not compared, exactly. Just mentioned. Like you were the unit of measurement she kept coming back to. The night felt very quiet suddenly, even with the card game, and the distant fireworks and the dogs still barking 2 houses down. She said that? I asked. Zach looked at the porch where Nadia was still on the phone, back turned, one hand moving while she talked. He looked back at me. Not to me directly, he said, but you know how thin the walls are in this house. He walked back to the card game. I stood by the cooler for a long moment. The coals in the fire pit had gone mostly dark. The string lights on the porch were still on, yellow and warm, throwing everything in soft shadows. I thought about Portland, about 3 weeks of her not mentioning it, about Zach's face when he said it wasn't about the job. I thought about all the things I had not said in 6 years, while telling myself I was being reasonable. She came back from the call with her mouth pressed flat, in the way that meant the client had been annoying, and she was choosing not to talk about it. She dropped down onto the bench by the fire pit and stared at the coals. You okay? I asked. Professionally fine. Personally, I need a snack and a different personality. I sat down on the other end of the bench, not next to her. 2 feet of space between us, which was the exact distance I had maintained for 6 years, without ever thinking about why. Zach said you turned down the Portland offer, I said. She went still, not frozen, just quiet in a way she was not usually quiet. He told you that, she said, tonight. Yeah. She looked at the fire pit. The last coal blinked orange and went dark. It wasn't the right fit, she said. It was a senior role at a firm you'd been watching for 2 years. Timing wasn't right. Nadia. She turned to look at me then. And that was the moment I could not take back. Because I had said her name in a way that was not the usual way. Not the teasing way or the casual way, or the way I used it when I was handing her coffee, or reminding her about a parking meter. It came out slower than that. More careful. She looked at me for a long second. Don't, she said quietly. Don't what? Don't make me say it out here where Zach is definitely watching from the kitchen window. I glanced toward the house. Sure enough, there was a shape in the lit window that moved away very quickly. I looked back at her. Then where? I asked. She stood up, and I did not know what that meant until she tilted her head toward the dock. The dock was the part of the property I liked most. It was old, the wood soft and slightly uneven underfoot, and it stuck out maybe 40 feet over the water, with 2 rusted folding chairs at the end that had been there since before Nadia and I had met. The lake was glassy and dark, and the fireworks from somewhere further down the shore were reflecting off the surface in slow, stuttering blooms. Nadia sat in one of the chairs. I took the other. Neither of us spoke for a minute. Down the shoreline, someone launched a red one, and it cracked open over the water, and we both watched it fade. "I've been offered a lot of things in the last 3 years," she said. "Positions, projects, relationships, things that should have been easy to say yes to." I kept my eyes on the water. "I keep finding reasons they don't work," she said. "Wrong timing. Wrong fit. Something's off, can't explain it." She paused. "I am very good at explaining things for clients. I can justify an entire rebrand to a board of 12 people. But when it comes to this specific pattern in my own life, I've been choosing not to look directly at it." "Okay," I said, because I did not trust myself to say more than that. "Portland was a good job," she said. "It really was. And I sat with the offer for 2 weeks, and I kept imagining what it would look like to take it. New apartment, new city, new people, building something from scratch." She stopped, and every time I tried to picture actually being there, the version of that life that felt real included you, and the version with furniture felt like a stage set. Like a room with furniture but no weight to any of it. I turned to look at her. She was looking at the water. "That's a lot to admit," I said. "I know, to me, specifically, I'm aware. Nadia, Joel." She finally turned. Her expression was something I had not seen before. Not the guarded version of her face, or the professional one, or the one she used when she was performing okayness for her family. Just her, tired and precise, and trying not to look as nervous as she clearly was. "I am not good at this." "Seems like you're doing it. I haven't gotten to the hard part yet." I waited. She folded her hands in her lap. "I know what I've been doing for the last 3 years. Measuring things against a feeling I can't recreate with anyone else. Against the version of easy that only exists when I'm around you." She looked down at her hands. "That's not fair to anyone I've dated. It's barely fair to you, because you didn't ask to be the standard." "I didn't mind," I said. She looked up. "Being the standard," I said. "I wouldn't have minded if I'd known." The water moved quietly against the dock. One of the rusty chairs creaked when I shifted. Down the shore, another firework went up, smaller than the last ones, and it opened white and slow over the black water. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" she asked. It was the same question I had been asking myself since I was standing by the cooler with a trash bag. "Because you had a life that was working," I said. I didn't want to be the thing that made it complicated. Every time I thought about saying something, there was a reason not to. "You were seeing someone, or you were stressed about work, or we were sitting in your parents' kitchen at Thanksgiving." And I thought, great, ideal moment. Bring up the fact that I've been in love with you for most of the time we've known each other. She blinked. I said it and could not unsay it, so I kept going. I kept telling myself that staying quiet was the mature thing, that what we had was enough, that I was being a good friend by not making it about me. I looked at the water. But I think I was also scared. Same reason you didn't take Portland. Not because the thing in front of you is bad. Because you already know what you want and you're not sure the person on the other end of that knows it too. She was quiet for a long time. The dock shifted slightly under a small wave. "Write in the comments," she said softly. I blinked. "What?" She looked at me sideways, and there was the beginning of a smile at the corner of her mouth. "You always say that at the end of things. You said it watching that movie last winter. You said it at my cousin's wedding when the speeches ran long. When something gets too real, you say, 'Write in the comments,' like you're about to cut to a break." I laughed once, surprised. "I noticed," she said. "You notice a lot of things, only about you." And that was the moment the dock stopped feeling like something I was just sitting on and started feeling like the specific place where 6 years of being careful finally ran out. I asked the only honest question left. "Was Zach wrong?" She did not answer right away. Another firework went off, a long way down the shore, and it reflected copper across the water. No, she said, one word, quiet, landed like something much bigger. I let out a breath I had not realized I was holding. Okay, I said. Okay, I need a second. Take it. I looked at the water. I looked at the dock lights from the house up the hill. I looked at my hands on the arms of the rusted chair. I thought about a Tuesday night in February when I had driven 40 minutes in the rain because she had said she was having a bad week, and I had told myself I was just being a good friend and believed it. Then, I stopped lying to myself. I have been in love with you, I said. For probably 4 of the 6 years we've been doing this. And I have been very, very committed to not saying so. She turned in her chair to face me fully. The dock light at the end of the pier caught the side of her face. What changed tonight? She asked. Zach. She made a noise that was almost a laugh. Of course. And the Portland thing. You not telling me. That mattered more than I expected. Why? Because, I said, if it didn't have anything to do with me, you would have told me. You tell me everything else. When it's something I can't have a role in, you go quiet, and you went quiet for 3 weeks. Her jaw tightened slightly, not angry, more like she had been caught being transparent. That's very observant of you, she said. I've had 6 years of practice watching you. She looked at me the way you look at someone when you realize they have been paying more attention than you thought. Not surprised exactly. More like confirmed. What do we do now? She said. I want to take you to dinner, I said. An actual dinner. Not the 2 of us splitting a pizza on your couch, because neither of us felt like cooking. Not lunch during a work errand. A real dinner, where I pick you up and we get dressed and I'm there, as I stopped. As more than what I've been. She was quiet. That's what I want, I said. I just needed to say it out loud at least once. She looked at the water. Then back at me. I turned down a job in Portland, she said, like she was confirming it for herself as much as me. You did. Which is not a small thing, I know. So you understand that I've already been doing something very dramatic here, and you've only just caught up. That surprised a real laugh out of me, I understand that. She smiled. Not a small one this time. The actual one, the one that reached all the way. Dinner, she said. Dinner, I said. With real plates, as opposed to what? The last time you took me somewhere. Nice, you made me eat tacos over a paper bag in a parking lot because you said the atmosphere was better outside. The atmosphere was better outside. There was a shopping cart 6 feet away. Joel. Fine. Real plates. Tablecloth. The whole thing. She sat back in her chair, still smiling. She sat back. The lake was dark and the fireworks had mostly stopped, and from up the hill I could hear Zach's voice carrying over the card game. Too loud for the hour, which meant he was winning. He's going to be insufferable, Nadia said. Yeah. He already thinks he fixed this. He kind of did. She tilted her head side to side. 60%. Maybe 65. I'll tell him 40, tell him 30 and see if he argues. We stayed on the dock for another half hour, not doing anything in particular. Talking about her client and my week and the fishing rod her dad had left propped against the boathouse for 3 summers without using. At some point our chairs ended up closer, together. Close enough that her arm was resting against mine, and neither of us mentioned it. When we finally walked back up the hill, Zach was the only one still outside. He was sitting on the porch steps in the dark, phone down, like he had been listening to absolutely nothing at all. He looked at us. He looked at the distance, or lack of it, between us. You're welcome, he said. Nadia threw a bottle cap at him. He caught it. 30%, I said. What? That's how much credit you get. He grinned. I'll take it. Her mom appeared in the doorway in her robe, holding a glass of water. She looked at Nadia, then at me, then at the 2 of us standing there in whatever expression we were wearing that we had not finished composing yet. Good, she said simply, like it was a thing she had been waiting to say for a while. Mom, Nadia started. I'm just getting water. She patted my arm on her way past. Good night, Joel. Good night, Mrs. Calloway. She stopped, turned back. You've been coming here for 6 years, she said. I think you can call me Diane. Then she went inside. Nadia looked at me. Her face was doing something between embarrassed and pleased that I had never seen from her before, and I had been watching her face for a long time. Come on, she said. We cleaned up the rest of the porch without planning to. I stacked the chairs. She folded the tablecloth. I pulled the string lights off the railing, while she collected the cups the cousins had left near the steps. It was the same thing we did every year, and also completely different, and neither of us said so out loud. At one point she handed me a cup, and our hands were in the same place for a second too long, and we both just left them there until it became intentional. This is going to change things, she said. Probably. Is that okay? I looked at her. Nadia. I drove 4 hours in a snowstorm and I told myself it was nothing. I think change is fine. She laughed quietly. The kind of laugh that means something came loose. We said goodnight on the porch, which should have been normal because we had said goodnight on that porch a dozen times. It was not normal. She stood there with one hand on the doorframe, and I stood 2 steps below her on the stairs, and she looked at me for a moment longer than usual. Then she stepped down 1 step and kissed me. Briefly, quietly, like she had been deciding about it for longer than the last few hours. She pulled back and looked at me. Okay, she said. Partly to me, and partly to herself. Okay, I said. She went inside. The door clicked shut. Through the screen I could hear Zach say something from the hallway, and her say shut up, without any heat in it. Then his laugh. Then, quiet. I stood on the porch steps for a minute in the dark with the lake behind me, and the fireworks long over, and the kind of still that only happens when a day has fully finished being what it was. Then I went inside, because I was also not a guest. I knew where the guest towels were, and I knew they were not for me, and I knew which bunk had the good pillow, and I knew that in the morning Diane Calloway would make coffee in a pot that was too big for the number of people who still drank coffee, and there would be eggs, and someone would start a debate about what to do with the day, and Nadia would stand at the counter with her cup in both hands and look at me across the kitchen, and whatever her face did would be different than it had been yesterday, and that was fine. That was actually more than fine. 3 months later, on a Tuesday night in the middle of October, when there was nothing special happening, and no particular reason for it, Nadia told me that she had looked at 3 other apartments in 2 other cities in the last 5 years, and passed on every one of them. She said it casually, like a footnote, like she just wanted me to have the full picture. I told her I had been turning down reasons to move since the year we met, and that I had been telling myself it was about my job, my lease, my routine. She nodded like she had already known that. We were splitting a pizza on her couch. There was no tablecloth. There were paper plates. I had stopped pretending. That was a lesser version of the thing I actually wanted.